Hi, it's Dr. Jantz. Self-esteem? What is self-esteem? How do I get it? And why does it matter? We'll talk about self-esteem. It's next.
Dr. Gregory Jantz is a best-selling author of over 45 books and the founder of the Center A Place of Hope, voted a top 10 center for depression treatment in the U.S. As the pioneer of whole person care, Dr. Jantz is known as the messenger of hope. Now the nation's expert on anxiety, depression, substance abuse, relationships, trauma, and PTSD, here is Dr. Gregory Jantz.
All right, self-esteem. It's a word we all say, well, do you have good self-esteem? Do you have good self-esteem? And it's a word we all know, all familiar with, but how do you build self-esteem and what is it? You know, it's more than just it's more than just feeling good about yourself. No, you don't have self-esteem when you constantly don't feel good about yourself. And your foundational issues of how you manage yourself, how you manage self-care, how you take healthy pride in presentation, and a healthy self-esteem helps you engage in a healthy way in relationships. It's all about not only how we feel, but what we believe to be true about ourselves. Think about that. What we believe to be true about ourselves. Well, maybe you encountered some significant abuse, trauma early in life, and that trauma early in life was such that it damaged your sense of self and how you see yourself. Maybe you struggle with, I don't feel worthy, I don't like who I am, there must be something defective about me. That's shame. In a word, that's shame. So, self-esteem, let's make it super simple. I wrote down the belief in our own worth and abilities. It's knowing that you're lovable and capable. Say that again. I know that I'm lovable and capable. I know that I'm worthy. And when we look at this from a whole person lens or vantage point, we look through the spiritual lens of our faith, and we believe that God created us and we're designed for a purpose, and we can feel good about ourselves, though we may have some difficulties and some struggles and some things that we're going to call challenges. We know who we are. And then there's our physical self. If you were ridiculed and put down physically, you may feel inferior physically, like I'm never good enough. And this is the thing about social media. The message is you compare yourself and you never feel good enough. And you see the reels from everybody else and their life looks wonderful. And you look at yours and go, I don't feel good about myself. It causes you to feel worse about yourself. Social media does that. Okay, now, healthy self-esteem is fluid. Yes, it's shaped by, and I made a note here, experiences and our life events, and it can improve over time. Yes, we can do some things. Let me share a personal example. Growing up early on, I just didn't engage much in any sports activity. I felt like I was not good or good enough, felt embarrassed. So I was not a young boy that you would have found in many sports. Now, I managed through junior high. Isn't that what we do? We manage through junior high. I hit high school, and I have somebody that is really a mentor type person who is engaged in my life, and I'm so grateful for that. It was actually a youth pastor and showed special interest, and he used to say things like, I believe in you. He was helping to renew my mind, but he was telling the truth. There were certain areas and certain things that he really did believe in me, and would say that so many times that it's like, come on, you just keep saying it. But I believe in you, Greg. I believe in you. And he had worked with me enough to believe that I could physically run, be a runner. And so I thought, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I can, because he knew that sports or physical things had been a challenge early on. There was a time, because of his encouragement and truth-telling and helping me renew my mind and believe in me, means that I know you have the ability, use it. I believe in you, I know you have the ability, use it. And that's really the message. And there was a day where I did sign up for a cross-country run, one of those long ones, and cross-country, you're out on the road running. I did sign up, and all I could hear inside my brain, the renewing of my mind went like this. He believes in me. He believes in me. I can do this. He believes in me. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran. And I have to tell you, it's never happened since, but I won that cross country, by the way. I crossed the finish line first in amazement and in astonishment, but he believed in me, and I was going to prove that true. From that point on, see, that was reinforced, and a belief deep within me was, hey, you can run. And you know what? I don't know. I've done so many 5K runs. I had way too many t-shirts. I had to give them all away. But, that was a turning point. I can do this. And so sometimes it takes somebody believing in what's already there to help erase old messages that said I was no good. And so the power of belief, the power of renewing our mind, that's why we say healthy self-esteem is fluid, it changes, it can be built, or it could be diminished. There can be events and things that happen to you, and it diminishes that self-esteem. One of the things that we need to look at with this is just actionable ways that you can improve your self-esteem. And number one is we have to leave the past in the past. If there's been trauma, it may have felt like it's defined the present. If there has been things in your life that have happened to you and you've really begun to believe a lie about yourself that's not true. One of the first books I wrote in 1992 was Healing the Scars of Emotional Abuse. And I wrote that because I know that physical abuse and sexual abuse is beyond destructive, but emotional abuse is too. And that's the name calling, that's the comparisons, that's the threats. And to be emotionally abused sends a message that you're unworthy, that you don't have value, that somebody else has power and control over you, in essence. So emotional abuse, by the way, that book is still in print since 1992, Emotional Abuse. It's something we need to have healing and recovery from if you've been traumatized by emotional abuse. A one-time event from somebody that was so traumatic, or a series of words and being treated in a certain way by a person or a group of people over time, that's emotional abuse. Now, it does mean I have to leave that in the past. That means to move and improve my self-esteem, I must find a place of forgiveness. I must find a place where I'm releasing that past. And I'm going to say, from my vantage point, sometimes this is with God's help that we do this. It's bigger than us. And we have to actively decide, I'm going to take charge of my self-esteem because today I'm going to, because I've been believing a lie. If it means I have to deal with past trauma, I have to deal with finding a new way to renew my mind, I'm going to do that. And that's also why I wrote the book. Got it right here. Triumph over trauma, because we've got to have that triumph. We've got to get through that trauma to build our self-esteem. Absolutely. So real growth does happen when we actively decide to take charge of our self-esteem. Yes, I want to just say so much about this. Step number two, we got to encourage others. We got to begin by seeing and showing appreciation. When we don't feel good about ourselves, begin to look for good in others and begin to be a person of gratitude and speak a good word over other people. Take a moment every day to say something encouraging and something that could be of great help and significance to another person. This is so important. Gratitude and thankfulness to another person can begin to reshape your internal view of yourself and reshaping a more healthy view of yourself. This is not about building a false sense of pride. This is not about pumping up an ego. This is about building for you the true sense of self, and I'm going to say the way God designed us to be. All right, number 3, just a few here. There's 5. Speak truth with confidence. What's that look like? Self-esteem is just not about how we feel about ourselves. It shows in our actions. I had to make the decision to line up and get in that lineup for the run and make that decision, that bold decision, line up on that chalk line, don't look back, make the decision to go, not knowing the outcome, build our confidence. And there's times where we're going to have the fear of rejection. We're going to feel like I'm not worthy. And I got to keep deciding over and over and over to speak truth and do truth with confidence. Confidence will come, but we got to keep moving forward right now. Okay. And this is just about being authentic. I'm going to try new things, do new things, get out, get moving. And I am going to always build the physical self. I don't mean become a bodybuilder. I mean, always take care of the physical self, practice the self-care, get the sleep. As I'm doing this today, I've been working on a new book that'll be out in another year on mental health and sleep. Those two go hand in hand, and we've got to do restorative rest. All right. There's even a little scripture in the Bible that says sweet sleep. That's what we need, some sweet sleep. All right. Number 4, embrace humility. Living with a humbleness means I'm teachable, I'm learning, and I can have emotional awareness, and I can strengthen my self-esteem by being humble, being learned, teachable, where I can begin to do new things. And I want you to be aware, here's what's so important. The 3 deadly emotions that can bring you down: anger, fear, and guilt. What's another word for anger? Hurt, bitterness, resentment, rage. That's on the anger category. Fear, anxiety, constant worry would fit. And there is such thing as full-fledged fear, and people are living in great fear and anxiety. As I'm here today, anxiety is the number 1 diagnosis, number 1 mental health diagnosis. That's a lot of anxiety. We do know that guilt, another word for guilt, is I'm going to say it here, would be shame. I feel defective. So watch those 3 ultimately toxic emotions, anger, fear, and guilt, will poison your self-esteem. All right, now we need to say, okay, I'm a healthy person. Healthy people deal with anger, hurt in their life. It's painful. I can't let anger rule. I can't let hurt rule. I cannot let unforgiveness or bitterness to take seed in my life. I've got to move beyond that. All right, now, next. When I think about being humble, I think about being grateful. Having an attitude of gratitude simply means, and I can tell you this from personal experience, 2 years of chemotherapy with my wife. My wife went through a period where there was a cancer diagnosis. It was a rapid type of cancer. And if you can imagine a couple years of going through this and chemo, you lose all your hair, you become very skinny, you don't look good, you look like you're dying. And that's what the chemo is doing. And during this time, she began to write a gratitude journal every day. Frail, no hair, barely able to function, and she's writing a gratitude journal. Let me tell you, that was 12 years ago this year, and she is still writing a gratitude journal. And she said, I believe God used a gratitude journal and me during my deepest, darkest days of writing gratitudes to keep me alive. Gratitude means we can grow, and we can grow emotionally, but we can't have anger, fear, and guilt and gratitude be there at the same time, because it poisons that gratitude and all those toxic emotions to stop the humility and the teachability. All right, number 5 and our final point. We need to separate our emotions from communication. Here's how you do this. One sign of healthy self-esteem is the ability to separate our emotions from the message being delivered. Yes, you can be very angry, but when we're able to keep a clear head, speak appropriately and calmly, even in emotionally charged moments, it will show your confidence is rooted in your ability to appropriately manage your feelings. That's a lot said, but you've seen this. When you can be heated and angry, but a person does not lose control, and they're bold and they're brave and they're angry, but you can tell that it's rooted in confidence, and they're able to manage the feelings so that the feelings don't turn into rage and destruction. Yes, that is learned. Yes, that is possible. By the way, communication is everything. Our ability to clearly communicate and communicate respect to others is significant. So here's a couple closing thoughts. Developing healthy self-esteem, it's ongoing. It requires some patience, some practice, a new awareness, probably some accountability, and a commitment. And you can turn this around. Just think about 6 months' time of practicing some of the tools of resolving trauma in your life, of moving gratitude in, of dealing with past hurt, anger, fears and anxiety, sense of false guilt and shame. That is what will begin to improve and strengthen our self-esteem. So it's never too late to take action. Make a decision. I'm going to renew. Okay, that means renew my thinking. I'm going to put the truth in. And I probably need accountability. Just like I needed that youth pastor mentor that entered my life that changed. Okay, telling me that he believed in me, that I could run a cross-country run, as silly as that is. And me believing it and doing it led me down a path that totally changed the direction of the road I was on, which was low self-esteem. And I can tell you that because of that impartation that he placed in my life of belief in me, my senior year, I turned around, I was straight A's, and I was elected student of the year from a few years ago, failing and miserable. I know the power of working on the self-esteem and the power of belief. I also know it can be changed. It can be changed and you won't regret it. So renew, reset, do what I need to do with accountability. Sometimes I need help resolving some of the past trauma or hurt, things that keep tripping me up because I just can't my depression's too great, my anxiety is too great. And if I have, and here's the caveat, if I have any addiction in my life, that addiction will rob my self-esteem and my ability to grow. So I've got to deal with anything's addiction. Addiction comes in lots of different forms, by the way. There is the addiction of social media. There's the addiction of alcohol, drugs. Social media is a big one, by the way. Pornography, sex addiction, gambling, food addiction. There's a lot of forms that addiction can take. It will rob us of our self-esteem. There's hope. There's hope. And there's times where if we are not doing well, we do need to ask for help. One of the things at aplaceofhope.com, go and look on the website. In the upper right it says test, mental health test. There are several that are related to self-esteem. And it's good just to see, well, where do I score? And what do I need to be working on? All right, there's hope. Hope comes when there's a plan. Let's create that plan of hope.